I'll just say it. I love Pier, Palo, Pasolini. And I also love Stanley Kubrick. Both are very good filmmakers. If you want to get into film, especially cinema outside of modern day Hollywood, or the slop era as everyone is now calling it, check out both Pasolini and Kubrick. Today, however, we are not here to draw a comparison, but talk about both of their final films. Films that were both about what the elites do behind closed doors. Films that were the director's last. Films that as soon as they were finished, both of their auteurs ended up unalive. Today we are talking about Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut and Pier Paolo Pasolini's Salow, or the 120 Days of Sodom. Just a heads up, there will be no spoilers in this video. First, a brief rundown of both of these auteurs. Stanley Kubrick directed 13 films from the years 1951 to 1999. He was a mad perfectionist, doing literally hundreds of takes and reshoots, driving the actors he worked with mad and some into total insanity. My overall favorite Kubrick film is Barry Lyndon, but his other films are great too. Kubrick, in my opinion, never made a bad film. Kubrick was American, but ended up becoming an expat, living in the English countryside. Then there is Pasolini. While Kubrick was a mad perfectionist, Pasolini's style was rougher and grittier. Sometimes I swear that Pasolini was channeling the future of cinema with his shaky, almost guerrilla-like filming technique. We would see this gritty style a lot more in 2000's 2010 cinema. So in a way, Pasolini helped lay the groundwork for fake documentary-style filmmaking, for better or worse on how you view this. Pasolini directed 23 films in his lifetime, some short, others documentary. My favorite overall of his is Arabian Nights, but we are here to talk about his and Kubrick's controversial final films. Let's talk about Eyes Wide Shut first, since it is the more well-known of the two films. Eyes Wide Shut is based on the novel Dream Story by Arthur Schnitzler. The original 1926 book took place in the early 1900s, turn of the century Austria. Kubrick and screenwriter Frederick Raphael updated the story, now taking place in 1990s New York. Eyes Wide Shut tells the story of Dr. William Bill Harford, played by Tom Cruise, who, without spoilers, goes on an interesting journey into the deep underground of the social elite. He comes across the occult rituals and hedonism that the elite do behind closed doors. Nicole Kidman plays his wife, with whom admits she has fantasies of other men. I'm not going to say what happens, because I don't like to spoil things. Let's just say it's one of those endings that stays with you. Filming began in November of 1996 and ended in June of 1998. You heard that correctly. Eyes Wide Shut took 15 months just to film. It is often regarded as one of the longest shoots in film history, even earning a spot in the Guinness Book of World Records. Post-production lasted until March of 1999, when Kubrick delivered a rough-cut viewing to Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, and the Warner Bros. Executives. 6 days later, Stanley Kubrick died of a heart attack in his sleep. He was 70 years old. There are many rumors about Kubrick's death. The one rumor that stands out to me is the rumor that there is a deleted scene in Eyes Wide Shut of a woman getting sacrificed. Supposedly, there is 20 to 25 minutes of missing footage that Warner Bros. Forced Kubrick to remove. After doing extensive research on the evidence of this lost footage, I came to my own personal conclusion that, well, I hate to admit it, but I don't think this footage ever existed. For one, most of the evidence that I found was from shaky, unreliable sources on Reddit, InfoWars, and other seedy places on the internet. I will try my best to describe the scene as it was described by the alleged people that viewed it. So here it goes. The scene in question starts at the tail end of the movie, with the abduction of one of the female characters. In a snuff film-like fashion, she is stripped naked, tied down to a black dinner table, and gets her face gruesomely sliced off with a blade. Then, some inbred Rothschild monstrosity licks the blood off of the removed face. Adrenochrome, anyone? Anyway, at the tail end, all the naked mask attendees finally take their masks off, exposing them as the leaders of the elite. Rothschilds, Rockefellers, the English royal family, 33rd degree Freemasons, Knights of Malta, and notable billionaires. Think about how Kubrick filmed. This would have taken tons of costly effects works to produce. Think about the hundreds of takes he would do and the amount of fake blood that Kubrick would go through. All I'm saying is that it would take a lot of work to keep a production like this quiet, with Kubrick's notorious perfectionist tendencies. To me, this reads like the 1975 exploitation film Snuff, a Manson family-style slasher film with an obviously tacked-on gruesome ending. That film has its own story, But anyway, the idea of it being tacked on at the end isn't very Kubrick to me. I have read a couple books about Kubrick, and one thing I know is that Kubrick mainly stuck with the same crew on most of his shoots. He was an auteur after all. His crew was almost like family to him. Kubrick's crew would stand up for his method of filming hundreds of takes. His crew was very loyal to him, and I honestly feel that if the sacrificial scene did exist, we would be hearing about it from those that worked with Kubrick, and not from fringe conspiracy threads on Reddit, BitChute, and InfoWars. I have read countless threads of where this theory came from, but with no success. I tried Google Trend and got nothing, but Wyoming for some reason. Every personal account I have come across that has claimed to have witnessed the footage reads like a creepypasta. It also doesn't help how inconsistent the details are from story to story. Plus, this scene would have gotten Eyes Wide Shut and NC-17, something that Warner Brothers, the studio funding the production, told Kubrick not to deliver. I have my own theory. From what I have read, this missing scene would have taken Kubrick months to film. Also, Kubrick was more subtle than what was being described in the alleged footage. He wouldn't have unmasked the elite in all of their evil glory. Again, he was more subtle than that. However, what I believe is that what Kubrick showed in the final cut still got under the elite's skin. Kubrick also wanted to go on the talk show circuit after Eyes Wide Shut's release. What he wanted to talk about on national TV will sadly remain a mystery. With his death so quick and abrupt, it does make sense that one would think that there was something about Eyes Wide Shut that Hollywood did not want to be exposed. And with what he exposed of what the elite do behind closed doors, it makes sense they wanted him dead. I don't think the human sacrifice scene existed, but I'm not ruling out the heart attack gun.
What is the password?
Orgy.
Pier Palo Pasolini was born on March 5, 1922 in Bologna, Italy. He was a poet, film director, writer, actor, and playwright. He was openly gay, a die-hard Marxist, and a vocal critic of the Americanization of Italy post-World War II. Pasolini was such a die-hard socialist that during the 1968 socialist student-led uprising in Italy, Pasolini stood up for the police, for as he saw them as the true proletariat, compared to the rich, college-educated Champagne socialists that made up the ranks of the student body, and still do to this day. Pasolini was a controversial individual to say the least, but today we are here to talk about his final film, Salow, or the 120 Days of Sodom. A word of warning before we dive in. Salow is a nasty film. Here, extreme torture, and, how to say this, a chocolate hot dog eating contest. The film focuses on the elite, the duke, the bishop, the magistrate, and of course, the president, as they kidnap, undress, humiliate, 18 captured naked teenagers. Unfortunately, I can't go too deep into talking about this film's story, not because of spoilers, but because of YouTube censorship. So Lily here is going to be doing some major overtime. It's a hard film for most to watch. The infamous Mud Monkey scenes are enough to turn most people away from this film. For some reason, this film has never been hard for me to watch. Maybe I'm too desensitized. I mean, we do live in a post 2 girls 1 cup era, so maybe watching people eating fudge log isn't all that shocking to me anymore. Plus, the German stuff in this film isn't real. The Cleveland Browns were made using a mixture of melted chocolate and marmalade. So in a way, you know the actors weren't at risk of getting pink eye, but high amounts of caloric sugar intake. Much like Eyes Wide Shut, Salow is also based on a book. Well, a mangled manuscript to be precise. The original work that Salow is based on, The 120 Days of Sodom, was written by the Marquis de Sade. The manuscript was written in 1785 while de Sade was imprisoned, but not released to the public until 1904. One thing to note about de Sade is his name. The word sadist derives from this man's very own name. That's how much of a sick fuck this guy was. De Sade's original story is even more sick and twisted than Pasolini's film. I can't even describe what goes on in the book without YouTube taking this video down. Pasolini updated the story from the 1700s to 1944 fascist Italy and the Nazi-occupied Republic of Salow. Unlike Eyes Wide Shut, this film shows the sacrifice. The film is divided into 4 chapters based on Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy: Ante Inferno, Circle of Mania, Circle of Esh, and finally, Circle of Blood. Salow premiered at the Paris Film Festival on November 23, 1975. The film played briefly in Italy before getting banned in January of 1976. Salow didn't get a US release until October of 1977. Salow is still banned in 17 countries around the world. On November 2, 1975, weeks before the debut screening of Salow, Pier Palo Pasolini was found on the coast of Ostia. His body was found beaten beyond recognition. His autopsy showed multiple broken bones, a smashed jaw, ears almost torn off, genitals destroyed with a metal object, and his body partially burned with gasoline. The autopsy also showed he was ran over by his own car repeatedly. A 17-year-old boy by the name of Giuseppe Pino Pelosi confessed to his murder and was sentenced to 9 years in prison. 29 years later, on May 7, 2005, Pelosi retracted his confession, which he said had been made under the threat of violence to his family. In 2023, a plea to reopen the case of Pasolini's murder came, basing itself on new DNA evidence, linking his murder to the Banda della Mezzogiorno, a now defunct Italian organized crime gang with far-right ties. Just like Eyes Wide Shut, there is a rumored 29 minutes worth of cuts from Salow. But unlike Eyes Wide Shut, it is confirmed that this cut did exist. According to some sources, the original film ran 145 minutes, compared to the 116-minute cut that we were delivered. According to Pasolini, these cuts were implemented for pacing, but I can't help but wonder what was in those 29 minutes that Pasolini cut. Did someone at the top tell him to remove the footage? What was in it? Maybe some of the more gruesome parts of the original book that had to be cut without getting into more controversy? Sadly, we will never know, as it's supposedly rumored that Pasolini destroyed the footage himself. I don't believe in coincidence. I just find it strange how both of these filmmakers made films about the bourgeoisie elite, and both ended up dead before being released. It's almost like there is some mysterious force that just doesn't want us to know what the elite do behind closed doors.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
I think Kubrick was rumored by the people at the top. I also feel some elitist pricks has something to do with Pasolini's murder as well. Lesson of the story? Unless you want to end up unalive, then don't make a film about what rich people do behind closed doors. Same goes with making movies about Satan as well. Anyway, this is The Abyss, staring back.